Hi folks, welcome to my channel. I'm Sarah and in today's video I'm comparing and reviewing two black Indian inks. The first one is Dr. P.H. Martin's Bombay Black India ink and the second is Winsor & Newton's Black Indian ink. I'm going to be looking at the different features and properties of these two inks and charting them out to make comparison easier. At the end of the video I'll also be testing how they lay down on paper by doing a few simple sketches using both a dip pen and a paintbrush, so watch till the end if you're interested to see how that goes, and I will tell you which one I've decided to use for the up and coming Inktober drawing challenge. If you like this video please give it a thumbs up, and if there's any questions you have that I didn't answer today then please let me know in the comments box below. Also, if you'd like to know more about Inktober and what I'm planning to do for it, then please consider subscribing and hitting the bell icon as well, as I'm going to be doing a video with all the details about that next week. So let's get back to my chart and talk about these inks. All the information I collected on both inks was found from either the packaging itself or from the manufacturer's websites, and where I couldn't get the information I was looking for, as in the case of Winsor & Newton on a couple of points, I did send them an email to get the most accurate information and answers to my questions, and they were really good and replied really quickly. So firstly let's look at the packaging and presentation of Dr. P.H. Martin's. Now these come in two main sizes, the 15ml or half ounce bottle which is plastic, and the 30ml or 1 ounce bottle which is glass with a useful dropper. So I'm not so keen on the smaller bottle design as it doesn't seem very sturdy, and being that you'd need to use a dropper to draw the ink out, I think you'd have to be a little bit careful not to spill or tip the bottle. But I do really like the larger size with the dropper bottle because it makes taking the ink out easy and relatively mess free, so you've got everything you need straight away. The cost for the two sizes, well, the smaller size I could only see available in a set of 12 and is currently on Amazon for £36.96, but the larger 1 ounce bottle can be bought open stock for around £6.37, so prices may vary depending on where you buy from and where you live as well. So the Winsor & Newton ink comes in this really nice little box. The bottle is glass and it's a very nice sturdy shape, but it does not come with a dropper, so you'd have to get that separately. And unlike Dr. P.H. Martin's, there's not much information on the packaging about its features or properties. It does just advise you to shake before use and store at room temperature. It does say on the box itself, not on the bottle, that it contains shellac and is light fast, but the writing is super tiny. And just as an aside, the Dr. P.H. Martin's does not contain this shellac, but I'll mention that a little bit later on. So far as cost, 14ml of this ink will cost around £3.85 on Amazon, which you can buy open stock or also as part of a set of drawing inks as well. Now, so far as permanence is concerned, both inks claim to be permanent, so they don't smudge when dry and they don't reactivate with water either. But going on to their water resistance, the P.H. Martin's do actually claim that the Bombay Black ink is waterproof, whilst the Winsor & Newton, although it didn't make it too clear on their website, this was one of the things I did email them about. They said the ink is highly water resistant, so it's not waterproof. It will resist water to a degree, but it will also lift if many layers of water are added. So this was something that I thought I could try out just to see how water resistant was, and I just did a simple test by putting two blobs of ink down and then just first of all applying some clean water to both, and then going over again with a bit more water and a bit more pushing and rigorous testing with my brush. And the Dr. P.H. Martin's did hold up really well, but as you can see the Winsor & Newton's did start to break down, and so I would agree with what they said about the water resistance. Now both of them do say that they're non-clogging and obviously dilutable with water before they've dried, so you can use them to draw with and write with as well. Now, so far as using them with dip pens, both of these inks say that you can use with dip pens, with brushes and with airbrushes, and I think they are really good with dip pens, and that's something I'm going to be trying out in a little bit. But being that with a dip pen you literally just dip the end in, that's not a problem, but as you can see with this pipette I think if you were to use them in a fountain or like pen with a reservoir in it that you'd need to clean, I think that would possibly be a bit of an issue. Now, the Dr. P.H. Martins do say that you can use with calligraphy pens, but the Winsor & Newton rather say that they're not recommended for calligraphy pens. So that's just something to bear in mind depending on what you're using it for. But they are still both good for the dip pens. Now, dye or pigment based, they both are classed as pigment based, which would explain their light fastness and that kind of thing as well, but also why you've got to be a little bit careful in pens or calligraphy pens because the pigment can block them. Now, both of them do say that they're fast to dry as well, and that's something that we're going to try out when we do another test later on. But the next test that I'm doing is just to check and see whether they are transparent or opaque and to compare the two. And I've just put down 3 different colours of Bombay ink and put a neat covering with a paintbrush of each ink over these, and they both seem to be pretty opaque and cover really well, so that's a definite tick for both of those. And I did notice that the Winsor & Newton did seem to dry a little bit faster than the Dr. P.H. Martins, but they're both nice and opaque and both light fast due to their pigment base. And we'll talk a little bit about the shellac. Now, that's something that can help make the ink light fast but isn't present in the Dr. P.H. Martins. So then I thought I'd do a little test on 2 separate bits of paper, one for each ink, and using the ink straight from the bottle. So it's not diluted, and I thought I'd try them with a dip pen, then a brush, and then mixing with water just to see if there's any difference between the two. So bearing in mind I'm using cold press paper, which was just because I had this offcut. I would probably normally recommend, if you're using a dip pen with ink, to use it on hot press paper because it's generally a smoother surface, but nonetheless the dip pen worked really well, and both inks actually provided a really smooth line, and you can see even with just using the brush they both lay down really nicely and you get a really nice opaque finish, and it's no problem at all. I think these are both ways that you can use ink without any problem at all. The third test was to see how they spread and flowed when put into water. So I guess the first 2 are sort of wet on dry techniques, and this one was a wet in wet technique. So I started off just by wetting the paper, and then I was keen to see how just dropping a little bit of ink in would spread out, and they did really spread nicely. I think I probably could have added a little bit more water, and maybe on a bigger design the effect would be more noticeable. But this seemed to work really well, and I'm really looking forward to trying out this technique in the Inktober drawing challenge. So moving on to the Winsor & Newton ink, and the same sort of test and pretty much the same result. I didn't have any noticeable differences between the two. They both flowed much the same. They both laid down with the dip pen and the paintbrush in much the same way. So I wouldn't say that one was any better or worse than the other. And again, using the wet in wet technique, I did apply a little bit more water to this one, I think, but just dropping a single drop of ink in with my pipette, and you can see how nicely that does flow. So I think we can give those 3 things a tick, and as I said, I do think that the Winsor & Newton does dry slightly faster, but they all flow really nicely neat out of the bottle as well as in water. Now, something else that might be of interest is just how they look when they're dry, and I'm just looking at the opacity bit that I did earlier on, and I can definitely see that the Winsor & Newton do have a slight shine to them. And looking into this a little bit, and I'm not 100% sure, so don't quote me, but I think that may be to do with the shellac that's in it. Now, shellac is added, from what I can gather at least, as a binder to improve adhesion to the paper and help with its resistance to UV light. but it also does have, as a side effect to it, a little bit of a shine to it. So if that's not something that you're after, then you could go for the Dr. P.H. Martin's instead. That hasn't got shellac in it from what I could find out, and so therefore I think it is more matte than the Winsor & Newton. But that's pretty much it for this test. I hope you found this useful. I found it really useful, and I think in conclusion, although both inks are really nice and both have their advantages, the packaging is really nice for both of them, and the Winsor & Newton is possibly slightly cheaper. I do still have a little bit of an issue with using them in pipettes and things like that. If anyone's got any ideas about how to clean pipettes other than just do it quickly, and certainly how to clean brushes after you've used ink with them, I'd really appreciate it. But I hope you found this video useful anyway. I think my favourite would still have to be the Bombay Black Ink by Dr. P.H. Martin's, and I think that's the one I'll be using for Inktober. But join me next week where I'll be telling you all about that challenge, and until then, here's some more videos that you might like. Thanks for watching. Bye!